watch what you say, don't offend them. They keeping it real, they commend them. People like get your wife pregnant, but I ain't trying to be dependent. I need money never ending. I'm talking 100%. I need the owner, you rent it. Whoa. Step in this.
All right, guys, so we're back in the Park Performance Laboratory again today for our maintenance pack installation. For those of you that have the EcoBoost Mustang, even if it's a brand new one and you've got some miles going on it and you want to start protecting it, there's a handful of products that we recommend, obviously, as preventative maintenance, a cheap insurance policy, if you will. One of those is the updated sensor with a low pressure fuel sensor. This has been a long debated topic as to whether or not it's an issue. Look, it's cheap insurance policy to go ahead and replace it now as opposed to finding out that it failed and you have an issue later. So we recommend replacing it. It's a $60, $70 part, something like that. It's not an expensive insurance policy. So it's going to be the low pressure fuel sensor, the updated purge valve. Many of you have gotten the P1450 check engine light, unable to bleed up fuel. You fill up with gas and unfortunately the car starts to kind of bog on startup and gives you some weird vibes. That's going to be handled and resolved with a new purge valve. So low pressure fuel sensor, purge valve, and in this instance we're doing the set of the Ruthenium pre-gap spark plugs. This car is a 93, basically full bolt-on car. So we're gonna have that gapped at 0.028 inch. And so we're gonna install all three of those items today. We'll install the low pressure fuel sensor, which you use a 12 millimeter and a 24 millimeter socket to remove that off the line and retighten it. We'll install the purge valve. This car is already equipped with a boost reference adapter. So we're gonna have to move that front piece over for the boost reference adapter onto the new purge valve. And in that instance, the only thing you're going to use is an 8 and a 10 mil to remove the engine cover, a 10 mil to remove the purge valve from the vehicle itself. You're going to remove one single clip, actually two clips rather, I apologize. And that purge valve will be replaced. And then the last piece will be the spark plug. So for the spark plugs, all you really need is a 8 millimeter to remove the coil packs, a trim removal tool to get the coil pack push down clips off of the top of the nuts, and then a spark plug socket. So we're gonna go ahead and dive in on that now, and we're gonna start by removing the engine cover. So from here, we're gonna go ahead and start with the low pressure fuel sensor at the back. This is the line that you're gonna be using here. You're gonna secure your 12 millimeter here, you're gonna use the 24 millimeter here, you're gonna disconnect your sensor. And I'm gonna go ahead and do that now. All right, so we're gonna secure the 12 mil on the actual hard pipe. We're gonna remove our sensor clip from the back, and then you're gonna use the 24 millimeter on the actual sensor. Now, lefty loosey, righty tighty, seems pretty simple. However, just remember that you're actually looking at this in reverse. So you're actually going to be holding this, and lefty loosey is actually gonna be towards the driver's side. Okay? Now, if the vehicle has been driven recently, I've got a rag here for this instance. There's sometimes gonna be pressure in here, and so when you loosen that, don't be scared if a little bit of gas comes out. A ton will not come out. As long as you've had it, and you can see there, just a little dribble came out. As long as you've had it here, like this one sat here for a couple of hours already, so not much came out. But if you've just driven it and parked it, even still, it's just a small amount of gas that will come out. Just make sure you have a rag here to capture it, and then that way you can clean up your mess when you're done. So now we're just gonna replace this with the updated fuel sensor. So we oftentimes get customers that come in and don't know whether or not they have the upgraded fuel sensor on their vehicle. This is the way to visually inspect and tell if you have the updated part number. The updated part number has the scallops here on the outside of the actual sensor itself, whereas the previous part number did not. It was just smooth all the way around. So visually upon inspecting, I can look at a customer's car and I can tell them if they have an old one or if they have the new one. In the event that they do have the new one, we obviously don't need to upgrade that at that time, and we can keep them rolling forward. In the event they've got the old one, we go ahead and do the upgrade. Okay, so with reinstalling, you're just gonna do the opposite. We're gonna be turning this towards ourselves in this instance. And I've had a couple of customers strip this out. I'm not really sure how. You know, listen, this isn't a gorilla deal. We don't need to be tightening this to 1,252 foot-pounds. But you do need it tight, obviously. There is gas flowing through this, so you don't want it to leak. So I run it all the way down by hand. You can see that if you look in here, there is no gap. I've ran it all the way down by hand. And then I'm gonna put my 24 on, and remember, we're tightening it, so we're gonna pull it towards us. And again, you're gonna hold the hard line with your 12 mil here, and you're just gonna give it a snug. So literally just a good snug, and that's it. And I actually pulled it, I gave it so much of a snug, I pulled it off of the factory peg right there, but that's not a big deal, goes right back on. Once you've done that, replug your sensor, clean up your mess, and we can move on to the purge valve. Okay, so in this instance, this is a fairly new car. He doesn't have any of the issues with the purge valve at this time. We're gonna go ahead and replace it though so that we can have this done for the maintenance pack video. When you get your purge valve from us, it's gonna be in an OEM Ford part bag, and it's typically gonna be taped like this. Now, you may be looking at that going, why the hell is this thing taped up? Trust me, we do it for your protection. When these get shipped, they have the hard case already, or the hard bracket already in place. And so that sometimes will puncture the packaging. So what we do is we actually tape that around here to avoid it puncturing your packaging. That way all your parts arrive to you safe and sound. So we're gonna use a razor blade, we're gonna cut this open, then we're gonna move into removing the purge valve. As I mentioned before, you're just gonna use a 10mm to remove the one single bolt that holds it to the intake manifold. You're gonna remove the electronic plug here on the top of the purge valve, and then the actual vacuum plug on the back of the purge valve. So we're gonna start with that, and then on this instance, we are gonna modify the front of this unit because it is equipped with a boost reference adapter for his aftermarket blow-off valve, so we'll do that as well. I look real good today. So we're gonna start by removing the 10mm here on the bracket, and then we're gonna disconnect our electronic plug for the purge valve, and then we're going to disconnect the vacuum plug for the purge valve. Okay, once you've got all three of those, this is completely ready to come off. In the instance that it's OEM, you've got a red clip and a black clip that are attached here, and I'll show you that when we open our purge valve here from Ford, because that one's still got it attached. Okay, so in an OEM configuration, this is obviously an aftermarket configuration for the boost reference adapter. In an OEM configuration, you've got this one single red clip here, and then you push in the black clip here. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna pull out the red clip all the way, push in the black clip, and then remove, and it'll come right up. For this instance, we're gonna actually remove this, so we're gonna use our razor blade, we're gonna cut this and score it, and remove that so that we can replace it with the boost reference adapter line. So all we're looking to do, we're not looking to make a cut, we're not looking to make any crazy pressure. You're just gonna score it, and you're gonna run your razor blade 2 or 3 times down the same exact line, and it should be able to score that open enough to where you don't damage the barb underneath, but it does break the plastic. So that way now we can move that. So for this instance, that is trash, and we'll be squirting the end of this with some WD-40 and putting on our boost reference adapter piece. So now we're just gonna put it all back together. 10mm back into the intake manifold, vacuum line back into the back of the purge valve, electronic connector back into the back of the purge valve, and then we're gonna put our boost reference adapter line on here. We're gonna secure it with a zip tie, and then we'll be on to the spark plugs. You only need a couple of tools to make this job go really easy. In the event that you have a strut bar, you'll obviously find yourself removing the strut bar. Outside of that, this is going to be the same on every EcoBoost Mustang. You want to have a trim removal tool, an 8mm, and a socket for the spark plug. We recommend using a magnetic socket because it's the easiest. So what you're going to do with your trim removal tool is you've got these little hold downs here that are part of the wiring harness. Just use your trim removal tool, pop those little fellers up, bada boom, bada bing. Now you have access to your 8mm. We're gonna go ahead and use the 8mm and loosen all 4 of the coil packs at the same time here, because we're not gonna remove them from the actual car or anything. We're just gonna drape them over to the side and replace the plug. Now you saw how fast that was. Listen, you've heard me talk about it before. If you haven't made the investment into an easy ratchet, Milwaukee easy ratchet, it's about like 130 bucks. It'll be one of the best tools you've ever invested into your toolbox. All right, with all those removed, just start removing the coil packs and tossing them to the side. Once they're out, use your magnetic spark plug socket. In this instance, I am gonna use my Milwaukee Impact to remove them. Only for removal. When we put it back in, I do it by hand and then tighten it by hand. Okay, so if you've ordered our maintenance pack, you have received the Rutheniums or the NGKs, 6510s, either one. We recommend the Rutheniums. These have been pre-gapped. When you open them, you should see that they've got a gap and a signature. This is because we've gone through them. What'll happen here is you'll see typically there's gonna be some lines on the box. That means that we've pulled them, we've inspected them, we've gapped them, we've confirmed the gap, and we've signed off on the gap. So this isn't just something where we're willy-nilly boxing them and sending them to you. You'll also notice that when we package them, they get put into their own separate envelope that's taped shut tight. That's to keep these from moving as much as possible during shipment. And then they also get put into a bubble pack as well. So again, our goal is to get you your parts safe and sound and to make sure that that gap does not change. That doesn't mean it's 100% of the time. If you do get them out, we still recommend that you check the gap, make sure that the 0.028 inch or 0.026 or whatever you've ordered, and make sure that they're the right gap before installing. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and check the gap on the plug. These are gapped to 0.028, so I have my 0.028 feeler gauge out. If you don't have a feeler gauge, you can pick one up at any auto parts store, off of Amazon, whatever. So we're just gonna run it through all 4 plugs and double check to make sure that it's good to go before throwing them down in the holes. They should be a little bit of a pressure fit, if you will. They shouldn't be so tight that they're grabbing and you're unable to pull them right back out. It shouldn't be so tight that you're trying to squeeze it and force it and damaging the tip. It should go in with just a little bit of pressure there and come out with just a little bit of pressure as well. That would mean that it's literally gapped down to the feeler gauge just right. So these are ready for install. Now with installation, this is why I recommend the magnetic tool, is because I can actually go ahead and place the spark plug in there upside down as such, and it will not come out. If you were to, let's say, just throw this spark plug down into the socket, you know, where the cylinder is, again, the problem's gonna be that if you throw it down and it's not exactly lined up with the threads and it hits the sidewall on its way down, you can effectively change the gap. So we wanna avoid that. Remember, you just paid to have these pre-gapped by us, so you don't wanna change that gap. So using a magnetic socket, we can go ahead and put this down in the hole. As I mentioned before, I did use an electronic tool to remove them. I do not use that for reinstallation. I run this all the way down by hand, and then I use some guys will use a torque wrench. I've done probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 2,000 of these plugs or more. I've got it pretty well down. So I do it with just a regular ratchet, and I give it just about 1/8 of an inch of a turn, and she's usually pretty spot on there. Now on the 18 and up, all 4 of these are typically gonna be the black studs. If you have a 15 to 17 or even some of the earlier 18s, the black studs will only go on cylinders 1 and 4, and those are for the hold downs for your wiring harness. Then you'll have 2 silver ones. Those 2 go on numbers 2 and numbers 3. That is just the variance between the different years there. That may never impact you at all, but just in case you were taking it apart, seeing this video and you saw that you had 2 silver and 2 black, that's the definition of what happens there. Okay, now, plugs are done, purge valve's done, low pressure fuel sensor's done. This vehicle is ready to go home with a fresh maintenance pack installed. Hope this video was helpful for you guys. If you want to purchase any of these products, please reach out to us at sales@pp-fl.com or visit our website at pp-fl.com. Until next time, see you then.
Whoa. Step in the spotty and watch how they panic. Yeah, we the duo, you know we dynamic. When we outside, we be stopping the traffic. Breaking their necks, them they upset. How them boys doing more when they got less? How they on this and how they on that? How they got this and how they got that? Too busy watching us, they need to stop that. Talking my shit, you know we gon' pop that. See it, I like it, yeah, I'm gon' cop that. When we on top, how you on top that? Nah.